Everyone, this is Lori from My File Addiction. Today we're going to talk about whether you can resize rhinestone letters or rhinestone designs in general. I get this question asked daily. People buy specific fonts. This particular font happens to be one of my most popular ones that I sell. Everybody likes it because it's got that swirl to it, and the letters are a little bit thicker in some areas and thinner, so they typically want to purchase this font, but they want, when they're making their words, they're making words with all different, the amount of letters, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So this particular font, in order to make those swirly letters, the uppercase letters are quite wide. Okay, so for this letter B by itself, if I zoom in here and you guys can see, it's about almost 2.5 inches tall, but just the letter B from here to over here is almost 4 inches wide. So right there, that has taken up the first 4 inches of your design. So now, if you're going to add letters to that, it just makes your design wider and wider and wider. So you typically, with this particular font, you can't use it for long words. And you can't just say, okay, well, I'm going to make the word bride, but now I want bridesmaid, and if I select bridesmaid, that design is 12.876 inches wide. Okay, for a typical woman, or even sometimes a plus size woman, that is just probably too wide of a design. So with rhinestone fonts and rhinestone just patterns in general, they are made up of circles, and those circles are sized to a specific size, and they have to be the correct size in order to cut the correct size hole into the template to make the transfer. So on our listing images, if I say a design is made up of SS10 stones, that means the circles inside the design are a specific size, and they have to stay that size in order for you to use that rhinestone size. Okay, so the circles for an SS10 stone are typically sized to 0.13 inches. When you change the size of a rhinestone file or font in general, it also changes the size of the circles, unfortunately. So unlike working with vinyl, where you can just squish or resize and make wording all different sizes that you want to fit your design, rhinestone fonts are not that way. You have to choose based on the style and the size of the lettering that the designer has made it as. So, fonts can be made all different sizes, and they're just not a one size fits all kind of situation. And so it's always a good idea to keep and purchase a variety of different rhinestone fonts if you don't want to make your own lettering. I myself, I don't always use rhinestone fonts. It's wonderful if it works out and I can use it. Excuse me. But in a lot of cases, it doesn't. So I will type out the word that I want to stone, size it to the size that I want it to be for that design, and then I sewn it from scratch. It's a long way, but it's the way that I know that for sure that style that I chose is going to fit into the design that I want. Okay. When you're, like I said, when you're working with pre-stone fonts, you don't have that choice, and you could try 20 different styles before you get one that fits into the size that you need it to be. And it might not be the style that you wanted originally to use. So say you wanted something pretty like this, but you needed it to be a hat design. It's a give and take. You can't have something pretty and fancy knowing that it may be a larger letter, and make it small. Okay, unless another option is to change stone sizes, and you would have to go down to an SS6 stone. So therefore you would have to decrease the size of your file so that these individual circles are 0.098 inches, so that they cut the correct size hole for an SS6 stone. So you're at the mercy of what the size of the design will be once it's shrunk down for an SS6. Okay. So inside of the silhouette program, I'm working in the business edition. You can resize your fonts or your designs from stone size to stone size. I'm going to show you how to do that, and then I'm going to also show you how you can actually take lettering like this, and how I can make this word smaller just by making some edits to the lettering. And that might work for you too. So just remember, you don't always have to, just because the designer made the font exactly like this, you can make some changes to it, and it could possibly work its way down and fit closer to the size that you need it to be. So, just to kind of give you an example, if you were to take this word bride and say, right now it's 7 inches, and say you did not want bride to be 7 inches. So if you took that and you smashed it like you would if you were to cut vinyl, and you went ahead and you cut this design, this purple circle here right now is going to represent our stone. Okay, so now this is our template. If we take our stone, I'm going to zoom in here because I can't grab this thing when it's that small here. It's going to resize it. Okay, so if we were to take this circle, in a normal size design, let's scroll down to this one that hasn't been changed, but your stone size, your actual rhinestone that you work with, is always going to be smaller than the hole, the hole that the circle will cut. Okay, so basically, let's right click, and we're going to, let's bring forward, right click, bring to front. Okay, there we go. So basically our stone size is, this is a 3mm stone, it's an SS10. It's going to be smaller than the hole that it is going to cut, and that allows the stone to go into that hole and pretty much stick. Okay, if you were trying to put an object that was close in size to the actual circle size, it would make it harder for it to fall into. Okay, and also when you can see if we go over to our bride, let's see, let's go over to our bride right here. Scroll up. Now, when I smash that bride to make it not as wide, you can see now the circles have become like ovals. Okay, so now this SS10 stone, if you were to cut your template and have these oval shape instead, this is what you have. Now all of a sudden you have a circle trying to go into an oval hole, and the circle is actually going to be wider than this part of the width of your oval shape. Okay, still fits in the height because we only adjusted the width, but now no longer, this will never drop inside those holes. Okay, so this is the reason that you cannot just go ahead and resize designs, rhinestone files, or fonts to any size that you want. The circles always have to be a specific size to cut a hole for whatever stone size you will be using. So an option you would have is to go from cutting a design using SS10 stones down to a design that would be for SS6 stones. So that means you need to take your word and you need to reduce it down so these circles are no longer 0.13 inches and they go down to 0.098 inches. Okay, so I am going to delete this design. I always make copies of everything because you can always go back to your original designs. It's easier. Okay, so here's the original. I'm going to make a copy of this and just bring it down. Okay, so in order to do that, I'm going to show you what you can do. Okay, you can select your design and you want to make sure all of your circles are individual objects. Right now I have all of my lettering grouped together, the circles for my lettering. It makes it easier to move things around. If not, the more circles you have to move, this program tends to lag. So I make a master copy of each of my letters with the circles for each letter grouped, and then it's easier for me just to say, okay, I need an E, copy, I need a D over here, and you can just easily move things around and you don't have to worry about your circles kind of shifting out of place either. So let's see, let's bring those back. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to select the entire design. I'm going to right click and then I am going to ungroup. And you want to make sure you see boxes around every single circle in here. So you want to make sure every letter ungrouped into individual circles. Okay. So now what we're going to do is now we are going to pull from the corner, because when you pull from the corner, you are proportionately resizing those circles. So they now will stay round. If you decide you want to, if you decide to shrink it this way and then you shrink it this way, there's no guarantee that that circle is going to stay round. You always need to do it from the corner. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to select this little box here on the corner, and we're going to pull it. I don't know why it wiggles those letters, but we're going to pull it in a little bit here. And as you can see, it kind of made the spacing a little wonky. But we can either select a circle here and we can You can see it's 0.117, so it's not exactly the 0.098 inches that we need it to be. So what we can do now is we can select this design. Oops, I think we have to be on our mat. What we're trying to get is this width and this height to be, see, the 0.117 inches in the height is what the size of the circle is, but I need both of those numbers to be, see how it is when you select an individual circle? So I'm not quite sure why it's doing that. Let's see. Get it to where the line, it's lined up. See how the letters are lined up now? Let's see. Nope, it's still not doing it. Yeah, what you're supposed to be able to do is select your design, go up into your width and your height, and change these numbers. The lock is on, so I only have to change one number, but you should be able to type in 0.098 and it should reduce, and I don't know why it does that. It's funny because I was playing around with this and I was having a difficult time, and then I got it to do it, so I thought I figured it out, but now it's not doing it. Okay, so no, let's see, it's probably still not. Oh, okay, see now both of my width and my height, the dimensions of the circle. So if I selected an individual circle, it's 0.110. So if I select this entire design, I get the 0.110 in the width and the height box, okay? And that's exactly what you want. I don't know why I was having issues before, but it might be just, you might have to, make some adjustments until you can get those numbers to match, but you should be able to override that number, and I type in 0.098, hit enter, then both the numbers in the width and the height are 0.098. So if I deselect and I select just one circle, I don't know if you can see, but now that circle is 0.098 inches. Okay, so now this design has gone from an SS10, which is the design above it, which would be this design over here, and now this is an SS6 design. Okay, but you can see it's shorter in width, but it actually has shrunk all of the letters. So this design is no longer the same height as my SS10 design. So that is the drawback to increasing or decreasing the size of the design based on increasing or decreasing the size of your stone size. It also changes the dimensions of the design. If that were to have stayed the same and you just replaced these circles, and I'll show you, you can do this like this. Oops, let's see here. If I were just to have replaced these circles, I might have to ungroup it here. Let's do my ungroup again. Everything's ungrouped. If I were to open up my rhinestone panel, there it is. I select an SS6 stone, and I select, let's do radial fill. Okay, it changed all of those circles from an SS10 to an SS6, but look at the spacing. Okay, so the design is, let's see what the design compares in size. 6.91. So the design stayed the same size, and it replaced all of those circles with an SS6, but the spacing is much wider than shrinking it like I did in this version. Okay, so to compare those two, let's zoom in. And you can kind of see. So you are going to have a design with a lot of spacing between the stones. If you were to have just replaced the stone size, if you would have replaced it with an SS16, those circles would probably touch, and you couldn't do that. Okay, so now what you might be able to do is, let's try this. I know when you make a rhinestone file, this would give you your stone count too. There's 272 SS6 stones. You could possibly see the circles are staying the same size, because you can do that when you actually make a rhinestone design in this program before you release your stones. Okay, so as long as they're still considered stones, you can resize them. You can resize the spacing. So see, I basically, to get the same size spacing and to keep the SS6 stone, I pretty much respaced it down to the size that I did manually by typing in my stone size up at the top here. Okay. So you definitely would not want to create a file with a lot of spacing like this. It just, too much of the shirt kind of shows through. Your goal is to make this design look as solid as possible, to make it look like it's one continuous line, and this doesn't make it look like that. So this type of spacing is going to make your file look so much nicer versus doing a design with a lot of spacing in between. Okay, so that's two different ways that you can resize a file by stone size. Okay, so now let's go to editing a rhinestone font. Okay, so I have a couple examples here. Oops, I can't get my scroll bar here. There we go. Okay, so we have the word bridesmaid. Okay, so as is, if I would have just built this with the my font that I use, the design would have been, like I said, almost 13 inches wide. Okay, so down here below, I actually shrunk that design and made it's still wide. It's still 11.031 inches wide, but I've taken almost 2 inches off of the width of the design, and it's still the same height. Okay, but I've made modifications to these letters, and this is just stuff that you kind of need to just learn to do if it's available. Okay, some fonts you can't modify them. okay? But in this case, what I did, and I'm going to show you, is, let's see. So the first thing, the D, let's go over, let's bring my, oops, let's just plop that down there. Okay, so the D in this is exactly the same size. The only thing I did here was I deleted this one circle here. Okay, so that's all I did with that. I'm going to do Control Z, bring that back. Okay, the I. Now, the I brought the I closer to the D in this version up here. Okay, so to bring it closer, there are basically 1, 2, 3, 4 circles here, but when I look here is 1, 2, 3. So basically what I did is I'll do Control, or no, I can't. Let's see what the short command is for ungrouping. So we can just, okay, it's Control Shift G. So I'm going to select it, Control Shift G. Now that ungroups that letter. So what I basically did is I deleted this circle here, and now that allows me to nudge this I and bring it closer to the D. Okay, so now right there we've created a little bit more space. Okay, same thing with the A. There's 1, 2, 3 circles here, 1, 2, 3, 4 circles here. Okay, so I'm going to do Control Shift G, ungroup my A, delete it. I'm going to select my A, and I'm going to arrow it over. And now, see, if I select just those 3 letters, it's 3.489. If I select these letters, well, actually, I can't do that because it should be the same. But if it was in my original, it would be much wider because it came over to the M. Okay, so the M kind of looks like I may have, let's select it. M looks like I left it as is, okay? So we'll do Control Z, brings that back. So I'm just going to shift this over. Yeah, see, if I would have, oops, you need to leave a little space. Sometimes you can't put the letters too close together. It will make them, script lettering gets too confusing and not legible if you if it's too condensed, too small, or too squished together. Okay, so that one I just left as is. So I believe the E and the S, let's see, the S looks like I kept it as is. So it looks like for the E, I made some modifications to it, okay, because you can see that this version that I have clicked is a lot wider than my red version. Okay, so what I probably did, and the only reason these are connected is originally they looked like this, okay, it's 2 separate letters. And a lot of times when you're connecting script letters from fonts, whether it be a typable font or an SVG file or whatever, these letters will not connect. The circles will overlap. So all I did was, I'm going to scroll in and show you. I lined them up, okay, to where the circles overlapped. I left my S grouped. I clicked on my E, Shift Control, ungroup here. And to connect those 2 letters, I deleted the overlapping stones. So now these two letters connect real nice, okay? So that's another, you know, things when we're creating these fonts, we don't know how these letters are going to kind of flow into each other, and sometimes letters such as the S, you have to make some modifications to those, okay? So don't be afraid to go ahead and do that, just because you don't have to leave them where they look like they are disconnected. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I am going to actually, let's zoom back out here. So I will take this, since these are two separate letters, put this back up here. My S, I know I kept as is, so it was the E that I modified. So what I probably did, let's kind of look at this E a little bit here, is I probably deleted one of those circles, selected my E here, and then what I probably did here was I brought this E in closer, and then I'm going to Control Shift, I'm going to ungroup my S, and then I'm going to just kind of connect those. Okay, so now I've shortened that those two letters up, okay, just by modifying the letter E. So see, that's pretty much what I did. If I put it up against that. So I'm going to put that close to the M, but you know, leave enough spacing there. I'm just going to make those black. Our D, the only thing looks like I did on the D here is there was 3 stones here, and there's 4 here. So I'm going to Shift Control Group, or ungroup it, and I am going to, now if I go to select this D, I'm going to probably end up selecting these circles for this E. So I need to, just for the sake of it right now, is I'm going to group, which I think is, let's go under Object, Group is Control G. So right now what I'm going to just do is I am going to hit, oops, I think I got to deselect it there. I'm going to, and I'm selecting part of the S too, but that's all right because I know I'm not going to move these letters. Control G. This allows me to actually select this letter D without selecting these circles in this letter E, okay? Because they're all grouped, it's only letting me select the circles that are individual objects. Okay, so now I can move my D over. And I think I'm just going to pick it up. And I kind of try to line up my letters on these black grids, okay? I always use those for kind of a guideline to make sure letters are even on the bottom. Okay, my letter I deleted one of these circles, so I am going to Shift or Control Shift G to ungroup it. Do this, and then I'm going to shift this over. I'll put it there. And the R, it looks like I did a couple things here, okay? So first of all, I deleted this end circle here, but then it looks like I also deleted some of these circles, okay? So I could bring it closer to the B. So I am going to, let's see, Shift Control, ungroup these. I'm going to delete this circle, and then so it looks like I only have 2 circles coming from here, so these 4 circles got deleted. And I am going to move that over. Okay, so now if I grab just this part of the design, and I'm going to turn it a different color. I'm going to turn it blue, and I'm going to group it just so I don't mess anything up here. And I'm just going to show you, compared to our original design, which was up here at the top, just by making those modifications, I've shortened it up almost 1 letter here, okay? But I've still been able to maintain SS10 stones. But now if I go and put this with this letter B here, and I select this design, it's still measuring 11.638 inches. Okay, this design up here that I made is 11.031. Okay, so what I did, and you might have to just kind of get creative here, but as you can see, pull my B down here. Oops, no. Here, I'll bring, let's see. I'm going to have to bring this B to this B. So I made a bunch of modifications to this red B here. Okay, so as you can see, I rearranged and I changed the depth of the swirl. Okay, so now this particular B, the red B, is not as wide as my black B. Okay, so let's see if I put this behind it. Sometimes, I don't know, some of these, let's see, send to back. Okay, there we go. I never know. I don't know why they have 2 different options there. One works and one doesn't work. But see, as you can see, so I made some big modifications to this. Okay, so this is something you're just going to have to envision, and it's not something that it's just always shown to you. It's just something that you have to learn to train yourself as a designer. How can I keep that B kind of looking the same way, but make modifications to it so it's not so wide? So basically all I did was, I didn't really have a pattern to follow. Basically what I did is I ungrouped this black bee. And I just kind of started making my own swirl. I knew I wanted it to come in a little bit here. So, basically from this point, you can kind of start seeing, I took this stone and I started moving it up. So I was just starting to bring in the curve of the swirl. And it you know, it's trial and error. I'm sure it took me a few different tries to kind of to get it to kind of flow nicely. As you can see, I had to cut down the size of the loop because the bigger loop probably didn't, it to me didn't look as nice or as proportionate. So I decided to make the loop a little bit smaller. And then I looks like I decided to make some modifications as far as the circles that are on the inside here too. So I'm not quite sure why I did that, but that probably wasn't necessary, but it's just something I did for that particular design. So with a little bit of thought process and thinking outside the box, you can modify these fonts and change the size of these lettering and, you know, maybe make it work for your design. But say if you needed this bridesmaid design to be 10 inches and the smallest you could get it down to using this font is 11 inches, then, you know, this wouldn't work. The only maybe possible solution I can think of to get it down a little bit shorter would have been to completely remove the swirl. Okay, so if I would have, let's see if I shift control ungroup. Original. Nope, it's not. Let me do it. Okay, probably because it's okay. But anyways, so it really doesn't matter here. But if we decided to say, okay, it's the swirl that's making this be too wide, you would almost have to, you know, change it up, and you know, you could make possibly you know, make a swirl. Let's see, let's zoom in here a little bit. It's easier when you're kind of zoomed in. You know, you could make it maybe a tail like that, and then you could have you know, this come out you know, maybe something along that lines. This could probably come out a little bit further. This is your furthest point for the width of your design, so you could actually loop that around and, you know, maybe make this top part a little bit more fancier. But see, if we select this design now, let's see how it was 11.03 1 inches. By deleting that swirl, we've now brought it down to 10.701 inches. Okay, so we've taken off maybe another half inch, a little over half of an inch. Okay, so other than that, that's the smallest, and that's the most edits I can see that could possibly be done to any of these letters, and keep it an SS10 design, stone design. One more trick I'm going to kind of show you just for block style lettering. Let's scroll out here. Okay, so this is a 2-inch, just an Arial type block lettering, nothing fancy, nothing like that. So we have the word Ted here, and say somebody wants this for a hat, but they want it to be 3 inches wide. Well, this lettering is 3.579 inches. Okay, it's too big, won't fit. What do I do now? Okay, you can modify the letters. Okay, this version here, basically what I did was I deleted this row of stones on the end here. Delete. I deleted this row of stones, made the T shorter. I took one stone off the end, delete it. Okay, delete. Should select them all. Delete. My E is now more narrow. The D, I took this row of stones, delete, delete. I grabbed these stones and I brought them over. Now we have narrowed all of our lettering, brought our letters closer together. And we have now brought that design down to just under 3 inches, which is the size that we needed it to be. So hopefully some of these tips will help you, and just remember to kind of look at things, think outside the box, think how can I modify this to make designs smaller or larger. Remember, when you are making a design smaller, you have to reduce the number of circles that there are in a design if you want to keep it the same size. So that means deleting circles. If you want to make it wider, you add circles. Okay, so that's how we delete, that's how we resize, based on keeping a stone size. It's all about adding or deleting circles. If you want to change the physical size of a design, you have to shrink it down. I shouldn't say the overall size of the design, and make it smaller or larger. That's when you have to change rhinestone sizes, and you have to make the circles, the size, reduce or increase the size of the circles to coincide with the rhinestone sizes that you would be adjusting the design to. So SS6 is 0.098 inches, and SS10 is 0.13 inches, and a SS16 I believe is 0.174 inches. Okay, so I hope this information was helpful, and have a great day.